In the year 1980, as the world transitioned from the analog haze of the 70s into the neon glow of the 80s, television screens were invaded by a vision so strange, so utterly alien, it felt like a transmission from another planet. With their bizarre tiered red hats matching yellow jumpsuits and a music video that was on a constant baffling loop, the band DEVO became famous overnight for one unforgettable song. They were dismissed as quirky novelties, a disposable joke in an era of disposable pop, a one-hit wonder that quickly vanished from the charts. But that's the shallowest possible reading of a story that is deeper, darker, and infinitely more successful than you can imagine. What if I told you that this band wasn't a joke, but a serious artistic statement born from a national tragedy? And what if I told you that the frontman of this failed band went on to create the music for this clip, Rugrats, and this clip, Thor, Ragnarok, and even this clip, the Lego Movie? This is the incredible story of how the weirdest band of the 80s, a band that told the world we were devolving, proved their own theory right, and became one of the most successful secret geniuses in Hollywood. Our story doesn't start in a recording studio, but in the decaying industrial heart of America, Akron, Ohio. In the late 1960s, Akron was the rubber capital of the world, a blue-collar city built by factories like Goodyear and Firestone. But by the time two art students, Mark Mothersbaugh and Jerry Casale, were growing up there, the city was beginning to rust. It was an environment of conformity, assembly lines, and the pervasive feeling of a system beginning to break down. This atmosphere of industrial decay would become the bedrock of their entire worldview. They found themselves at Kent State University, a place where the simmering tensions of the era were about to boil over. The year is 1970. The Vietnam War is raging, and President Nixon has just announced the invasion of Cambodia. Protests erupt on campuses across the country, including Kent State. On May 4th, the Ohio National Guard was called in to disperse a student protest. Jerry Casale was there, standing with his friends. One of them was a girl named Allison Krauss. He would later recall telling her, "Allison, you better get out of here." She replied, "What are they gonna do, shoot us?" Minutes later, the guard opened fire on the unarmed students. For 13 seconds, 67 shots were fired. When it was over, 4 students were dead. Allison Krauss was one of them. Another, Jeffrey Miller, was killed instantly. Jerry Casale was standing about 50 feet away. He ran over to his friend and saw the exit wound, an image that would be burned into his mind forever. For Casale and his friend Mothersbaugh, this was not just a tragedy. It was a moment of horrifying clarity. They concluded that humanity was not progressing, not evolving towards a brighter future. Instead, it was regressing, becoming more primitive, more tribal, more violent. Humanity, they decided, was in a state of de-evolution. This wasn't a gimmick, it was their gospel. DEVO, the band, became a multimedia art project designed to prove this theory. Their early short films, like The Truth About De-Evolution, won awards at film festivals. Their stage shows were bizarre performance art pieces featuring characters like Bougie Boy, a man-child in a mask, meant to symbolize the infantile regression of Western culture. Their music was intentionally robotic, jerky, and stripped of the blues-based swagger of traditional rock and roll. It was the sound of anxious machines, the soundtrack to the assembly line at the end of the world. For years, DEVO was an underground sensation, a cult act praised by musical pioneers like David Bowie and Iggy Pop, but major record labels were terrified of them. It was Neil Young, a man who knew a thing or two about artistic integrity, who became their champion. He confronted record executives, telling them, "You guys are idiots. This is the band of the future." With that push, they were signed. Their first album, produced by the legendary Brian Eno, was titled Q, Are We Not Men? A, We Are DEVO. It included a now legendary cover of the Rolling Stones' I Can't Get No Satisfaction. But they didn't just play the song, they deconstructed it. They took Mick Jagger's primal scream of frustration and turned it into a spastic mechanical complaint. It was the perfect thesis statement for their band. Then came the album Freedom of Choice in 1980. On it was a simple, catchy song built around a 5-note synth riff. Jerry Casale had written the lyrics as a dark satire of American can-do optimism, a kind of self-help mantra for a nation in decline. It was meant to be a parody of the mindless positivity that tells you to just go forward, move ahead, try to detect it, it's not too late. The song was called Whip It. The public completely missed the satire. The record label demanded a video for the new 24-hour music channel, MTV. The band, on a shoestring budget, created a spectacle on a soundstage made to look like a ranch. Mark Mothersbaugh, wearing the newly designed red Energy Dome hat, uses a whip to systematically strip the clothes off a woman. It was absurd, it was memorable, and in the Wild West of early MTV, it was played relentlessly. The song shot up to number 14 on the Billboard charts. Suddenly, the deeply serious, politically charged art project from Akron, Ohio, was a mainstream pop sensation. The red hats, which the band claimed were designed to recycle and focus misdirected cranial energy, became their trademark. But for the public, the deep social commentary was lost. DEVO just became the weird guys who sang "Whip It," so why didn't they have another hit? The simple answer is, they were never trying to. Their one moment of pop stardom was a cosmic accident. The pressure from Warner Brothers to create "Whip It Part 2" was immense, and the band responded by doing the exact opposite. Their next album, Oh No, It's DEVO, was a direct commentary on their newfound fame. The cover art featured the band as potatoes, a metaphor for how the industry was trying to turn their unique art into a mass-produced commodity. Songs like Peekaboo, while getting some MTV airplay, were far too strange to climb the pop charts. They doubled down on their theories and their look. They explained that their jumpsuits were for de-emphasizing sexuality and promoting uniformity. The energy domes were not just hats but functional devices. It was all part of a universe of ideas that the average pop fan who just wanted another catchy tune had no time for. By the mid-80s, their embrace of new synthesizer technology like the Fairlight CMI made their music even more electronic and less accessible. Their 1984 album Shout was a commercial disaster, and they were dropped by their record label. The public that had briefly embraced them for a novelty hit had moved on. The one-hit wonder label was firmly stuck, and DEVO, the pop band, effectively disappeared. But while DEVO, the band, faded from the spotlight, frontman Mark Mothersbaugh was just getting started. He had spent years creating not just music, but a complete visual and sonic world. And another artist who loved creating weird worlds had taken notice. In 1986, actor Paul Reubens, a longtime DEVO fan, approached Mothersbaugh. He needed music for his bizarre new kids show Pee-wee's Playhouse. Mark's quirky, synth-driven style was a perfect fit. This opened a door. A few years later, he opened his own iconic UFO-shaped production company in Hollywood, Muto Musica. His next project would define the sound of childhood for an entire generation. He created the unforgettable theme and score for the Nickelodeon cartoon Rugrats. That plinky toy piano sound, that playful, slightly off-kilter melody, that was the sound of DEVO repackaged for kids. For the next 30 years, Mark Mothersbaugh became one of the most prolific and sought-after composers in Hollywood. His quirky, synth-heavy DEVO sound was the perfect match for the melancholy, deadpan worlds of director Wes Anderson. He scored Anderson's first 4 films, including Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, and The Royal Tenenbaums. He became the go-to composer for blockbuster animation, bringing his boundless energy to films like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the Hotel Transylvania series, and he created the relentlessly catchy earworm Everything is Awesome for the Lego Movie. He even composed the music for some of the most popular video games of the 90s, including the first 3 installments of Crash Bandicoot. And in 2017, he brought his signature 80s synth sound roaring back into the mainstream, when director Taika Waititi specifically hired him to score the Marvel blockbuster Thor Ragnarok. That pulsing retro-futuristic score was pure, unfiltered Mothersbaugh, and it wasn't just Mark. Jerry Casale became a successful director of music videos and commercials. The other members continued to work in music and art. The creative wellspring of DEVO never dried up, it just flowed into new channels. So was DEVO a one-hit wonder? On the pop charts, yes, but that's like calling an iceberg a chunk of ice. The hit was just the tiny visible tip of a massive, complex, and deeply serious artistic project. In a strange way, their one hit proved their ultimate theory. A culture that could only understand their most simplistic song while ignoring the complex message behind it was in fact a culture in a state of de-evolution. They weren't failed pop stars. They were successful artists who used a moment of pop fame as a Trojan horse to fund a lifetime of creativity. The weird guy in the red hat never really went away, he just shapeshifted. You've been listening to his work your entire life, You just never knew it. What's your favorite Mark Mothersbaugh score? Let us know in the comments. And for more stories behind the smash, make sure to subscribe.